Maybe just quickly, I just wanted to say whakawhai koe New Zealand for giving us the good news about the loss and damage support that not just the Pacific Island countries, but all around the world actually do require. So I think I speak on behalf of all the Pacific Islanders that it is our most sincere appreciation to the government of New Zealand, the Right Honourable Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and of course, the government of New Zealand. Thank you to us in Vanuatu, we say. My name is Penny Leavai. I am the Deputy Country Rep for the Global Green Growth Institute from Papua New Guinea. I will be your moderator today. And today, at this COP27, the government of Vanuatu will present its long-term low emissions development strategy, or LEDS. Where I come from, GGGI, we've been fortunate to assist Vanuatu with the development of their LEDS, and we are proud to facilitate this session at COP27. I will not tell you in which paragraph on what decision right here in the convention and the Paris Agreement the LEDS come from. I'll allow our government from Vanuatu to outline. But shortly and swiftly, a little bit about the GGGI in the Pacific, because we are helping to work with the governments of the Pacific Islands to meet their NDC targets. GGGI, Global Green Growth Institute, is a treaty-based international intergovernmental organization dedicated to supporting and promoting strong, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth in developing countries and emerging economies. We have 5 members in the Pacific Islands: Fiji, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, Tonga, and Vanuatu. And I understand the government of Samoa is in the works. GGGI's work in the Pacific started with operations on the ground in Fiji and Vanuatu in 2015. Since then, we have established offices in Kiribati, PNG, where I currently work, and Tonga. In addition, through regional programs such as the Pacific NDC Hub, GGGI has been able to carry out project activities in Tuvalu, Samoa, Solomon Islands, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. We have been assisting Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, and the Solomon Islands with their LEDS. Maybe I'll just pause here slightly. I'll just ask my IT team, Tawita, can you put up that slide? Try and go to slide number 3. That would be an excellent one. And we can continue from there. I just wanted to show you that to date, 54 LEDS and long-term strategies have been produced by a range of developed and developing countries. These strategies reflect a variety of national priorities and circumstances that must be navigated to achieve the global goals, and especially a credible pathway to net zero by 2050. GGGI is supporting LEDS developments in these Pacific Island countries, and the process has been nothing short of participatory. At GGGI, we are results focused as well. We see the LEDS as part of the bigger picture of bringing resources to meet the needs of countries to mitigate and adapt to climate change. By the way, that's a line from the government of Vanuatu, which we have taken to heart and followed through. So to speak about the Vanuatu LEDS today, allow me to introduce. Speaking today we have none other than Mr. Anthony Garai, our Director for Energy from the government of Vanuatu. I will invite Mr. Anthony Garai to provide his presentation on behalf of the Director of Mike YY, because Mike YY is the Director of the Ministry of Climate Change, but he's also the Chair of the Steering Committee for LEDS Vanuatu. And so following, here's a brief on our program. Following Anthony, I will then invite our development partners to come on board from the governments of New Zealand and the government of France and their representatives, whom I will introduce. So without further ado, I would like to call upon Anthony to give us our presentation from the government of Vanuatu. Please put your hands together for Mr. Garai.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. Or good morning, Ogata, I would say. Firstly, let me thank the moderator for the introduction. And let me welcome you all for today's side event, to which Vanuatu will present. Or I will be speaking on behalf of Director Mike, like the moderator has mentioned, to present Vanuatu's LEDS. Let me begin by welcoming the distinguished guest, representative from GGI, the government of New Zealand, representative from the government of France. Ladies and gentlemen, like the moderator has mentioned, my name is Anthony Karai. I'm the Director, Department of Energy. My role is to oversee the energy policy implementation for the government of Vanuatu. I'm proud to be here this morning at the Moana Pacific Pavilion to present Vanuatu's LEDS and share experience how far we've come to date in terms of developing our LEDS. Next slide, please. I'll start by explaining, I believe you all have known, aware of the LEDS, but let me begin by saying, I think LEDS it's an important strategy leading towards achieving the ambitions or the aim of the Paris Agreement. And like the moderator has rightly mentioned, we could, countries or parties under Article 4, Paragraph 9 of the Paris Agreement reiterates the fact that parties should communicate their long-term vision into reaching the net zero emission by 2050. And that Vanuatu as a member to the convention, we are so proud to develop our LEDS, communicating how we intend to strategize towards achieving that net zero. Like Penny has mentioned, I think to date over 50 LEDS has been developed and produced. And for Vanuatu is unique in the sense that already we are net zero, I must say, given our emission, if you look at it, our emission, it's almost negligible. Why the LEDS for Vanuatu? Next slide, please. So there's three key areas why we intend to produce the LEDS for Vanuatu. The first one, it's more on meeting in relation to the Paris Agreement, achieving the climate goal, and global action on how we intend to mitigate climate change. So for Vanuatu, own pathway in reducing emission demonstrate the commitment to seek at the global level. That's why we've presented our LED. Next is further develop strategy on domestic policy, leading towards how we intend to reduce our emission, becoming resilience, and also trying to put all the necessary frameworks in place in terms of how we strategize towards meeting the convention or the Paris Agreement. Then that is to support the international assistance through project pipeline development. Next slide, please. By way of process, locally, how we've come up to formulate our LEDS. If you look at the diagram there, on your left, firstly, we begin by analyzing our sector policy, whatever policy we have, for instance, the National Energy Roadmap, the climate change disaster risk reduction policy, and other policies that we have. So based on that, we've reviewed that, analyze it, consult with necessary stakeholders. And then second is the vision development and action prioritization for Vanuatu. What we intend, what's the vision for Vanuatu in terms of its in communicating its LEDS. And then modeling. The third process we've undertaken was the energy and emission modeling. And that we've used specific softwares like the LEAP to assist in doing our modeling. And then the last, it's the communications throughout of what we intend to propose in our LEDS. Next slide, please. In terms of the sector policy analysis, like I've mentioned or indicated earlier on, those you could see some of the policies that has been reviewed: the National Energy Roadmap, the CDRR policy, the National GHG Inventory, and of course the NDC for Vanuatu. In terms of consultation was done broadly, widely, including the government, institution, private and non-government sector. So it's a collaborative and holistic approach in terms of how we come about in developing our LEDS. And basically, as we know, for Vanuatu, data is something of a hassle for us. Therefore, that's how we intend to get all the data, by involving all, our sector-wide consultation. Next slide, please. By the end of the consultation, we've done validation workshop, consultation workshop. That's a beautiful photo that we've taken after the stakeholder consultation that was done on the 20th of July, and also in August. And the last validation workshop was on the 7th of October, just recently. So in terms of the process, again, like I mentioned, the energy modeling, we've utilized the low emission analysis platform, the LEAP, to do our modeling for the energy sector. And that we've sort of analyzed, come up with different scenarios, to which later on I will present that one. So we've utilized the LEAP software to do the modeling. In terms of climate change adaptation, was not part of the modeling, but rather it's based, the analysis was more on the qualitative assessment in each sector. So after the validation workshop and other workshop that we've conducted, that's the vision that we've come up with. So the vision for the LEDS, as you've seen, you can see in the screen up there, is to basically reduce emission across all sectors in a way that support resilient, sustainable, and equitable growth for its people, or the people of Vanuatu. So that's the core vision for Vanuatu's LEDS. Next slide, please. So in terms of our long-term emission based on business as usual, this was formulated as part also of our NDC, enhanced NDC. So based on a circular economy study that we've undertaken, and also on the energy modeling, you would see Vanuatu's emission, most of Vanuatu's emission from the chart, you would see it comes from livestock, which is a critical and a sensitive sector for us as well. In the very beginning, we thought that it was energy and transport as the biggest contributors, but it was not the case for Vanuatu. Livestock is the biggest emitting sector for Vanuatu. In terms of emission pathway, that's, you could see the policy, strategy, action alignment to the low emission according to different sectors. So you have electricity and energy use. So the green dot indicates there's clear strategy in place. As you can see in the key below, for transport, it indicates that there's no clear strategy. Waste, there's clear strategy. Livestock, there's no clear strategy. Forestry and agriculture and land use, there's the clear strategy in there. And then health and water, there's no clear strategy relating that to our emission going forward. In terms of resilience and adaptation, similarly, that's the outcome, the findings that we've achieved, respective to different sectors on the policy and strategies as well. So in terms of the outcomes for the energy, based on our analysis, Vanuatu's NDC is, we have ambitious goals for 2030, achieving 100% by 2030. However, it's conditional and it's conditional subject to technical and financial support. Therefore, for the LEDS vision, we try to align that with all our policies, the NDC, the National Energy Roadmap, and other policies as well. Additional actions needed to meet the LEDS vision to 2050. First is enhance existing programs to meet the growing electricity demand, promoting clean cooking transition, and then the list goes on, which last you could see there, also focusing on climate resilience and adaptation planning in the energy sector as well. So not focusing entirely on mitigation, but also trying to align that with adaptation plans as well. Likewise, for the transport sector, those are the actions needed to meet the LEDS vision, including developing national transport policy, skills development and capacity building in the EV space, implementing complementary vehicle and fuel standards or another regulatory frameworks or conducive environment that is needed. In the waste sector, including municipal waste and wastewater, also it's a driver for emission. The waste sector is a potential source of energy as well at the household or industrial scale. While the policy framework are supportive of LEDS vision, there are additional actions like other sectors, which includes scaling up biomass production and also increased waste management awareness. For the livestock sector, like I mentioned earlier on, livestock is the largest contributor to Vanuatu's GHG. Therefore, the actions needed to achieve Vanuatu's vision by 2050 includes introducing livestock emission targets and strategy, further engagement with livestock sector to understand hazard vulnerability, resilience, and adaptation options. In the AFOLU sector, those are the outcome of the findings of based on the analysis and the consultations we've received. So beefing up on the RED Plus forestry strategy, developing consolidated programs to access forest carbon, also mainstreaming climate smart agriculture, and also developing a framework for land use planning and climate resilience. Lastly, for water and health, the following additional actions are needed or required, which includes enhanced mitigation efforts in the water sector, develop adaptation plans, for water and health sector. By way of next steps, first includes LEDS publication subject to ministerial endorsement. So we've pretty much have our final draft, but locally we have processes to get final endorsement before we could publish Vanuatu's LEDS. Then release of LEDS videos in all three languages in English, including English, Pislam, and French. The next step is to support and refine the LEDS action identified as presented earlier. And lastly, engage Vanuatu's development partners throughout and around preferred concept node design. In terms of assistance to produce the LEDS, again, I'd like to acknowledge the government of New Zealand and also the government of France for their financial assistance, and also acknowledging GGI for their unwavering technical assistance in assisting Vanuatu in formulating Vanuatu's LEDS. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for that excellent presentation to telling us where Vanuatu is with respect to their LEDS. I mean, what's amazing is the fact that the targets that we have here for Vanuatu are ambitious, but that's exactly what we want to actually move towards, not only giving a good example of a country who's actually walking the talk, but actually showing that there is a lot of potential that a country as small as this can help alleviate the greenhouse gas emissions that helps us bring 1.5 degrees Celsius into reality. By way of comparison, if I were to put Vanuatu against another country, I'll put it against PNG. PNG does not have a LEDS program. It's currently approaching things at the moment with different policies at different levels, but it's also piecemeal. What is good is that GGI, and I think are in discussion at the moment with the government of New Zealand, as well as the government of France, coincidentally, in also supporting Papua New Guinea's LEDS. But what we do know is that Vanuatu, you've been not selective on your sectors. Your vision on your LEDS says that you will actually look at all the sectors, but not a few sectors. PNG is taking a different approach. It's only chosen 2 sectors under its enhanced NDC, and that is the AFOLU sector and energy sector. But even under energy, it's not across the energy spectrum. It's just particularly with electricity generation. So interesting stuff. The things that a big country such as PNG can do, the things that Vanuatu, which as a fun fact, Vanuatu has a reputation for bravery. And I feel like that's where your vision is coming from, Anthony. Congratulations. Now, without further ado, I would like to play one of our videos because we had a lot of time spent in working on these 2 videos. We only have 1 time for one of the videos. So we're going to try and ask Tavita here if he can play that video for us. So it's David, try the second video. I think the first video was about an introduction to LEDS, but I think Anthony has took us into the introduction. We're going to go into the second video that explores the energy sector and what that means from a LEDS lens. So with all the noise outside, it's a good time to test your listening skills and see how well you can listen to some of the key messages. But David, over to you. Following that, while David is putting that up, I'll come back to our keynote remarks for today's session. Thank you.
The Global Green Growth Institute, working with developing countries to achieve poverty reduction and inclusive, sustainable economic growth.
As As part of Vanuatu's commitment to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, the government of Vanuatu, with the assistance of the Global Green Growth Institute, the government of New Zealand, and the government of France, is developing a long-term low emissions development strategy, or LEDS, with a strategic vision to 2050 to reduce emissions across all sectors in a way that supports resilient, sustainable, and equitable growth for its people. The LEDS acts like a window to the future, providing insight into how Vanuatu can meet its Paris commitments with a long-term goal of net zero emissions for all of Vanuatu by 2050. Like most of the Pacific Island nations, Vanuatu has relied on expensive imported fuel to generate its electricity. In 2020, more than 14 million liters of diesel were used for power generation, which equates to more than 32,000 tons of CO2 being released into the atmosphere. This reliance on fossil fuels creates challenges in terms of energy security and affordability.
Vanuatu is dependent on fossil fuel mostly. Pretty much 80% of the electricity generation in Vanuatu comes from fossil fuel or diesel, and a remaining 20% comes from either hydro, wind, and solar. Typically, we have households that are key consumers of electricity in Vanuatu, and then we have public institutions, the tourism industries, who is also a big user of the electricity. We have industries, a bit of factories, and other big consumers that consume electricity as well.
Vanuatu's National Energy Roadmap has set a path to 2030 with ambitious goals for 100% power generation from renewable sources and affordable access to power for all people across the 83-island archipelago. The National Energy Roadmap is not just about renewable energy sources. It also looks at energy efficiencies, affordability, and accessibility.
Our targets are sort of ambitious to achieve by 2030, but we can only achieve that through technical support and financial support from our key development partners, donors, and other partners that are assisting us in driving the National Energy Roadmap.
Geographical distances between the 80+ islands and poor access creates major challenges when it comes to rural electrification. However, much work has been done to bring small-scale solar systems to the rural communities through the successful VREP program. There's also been rapid development of both large and small-scale solar projects across all islands for both power generation and water pumping with mini-grids for small rural communities. The commissioning of the Kawene Plateau wind farm in 2008 brought 3 megawatts of renewable capacity to the main island of Efate, which equates to 15% of the energy needs for that concession. Vanuatu has also seen the successful development of the Sarakata Hydro project in the largest island of Santo, which in 2020 supplied 75% of the power for Santo, bringing low-cost electricity to residents and industry. In Efate, renewable coconut oil has been used extensively at the main generation plant as an alternative to diesel.
It's proven in terms of the technology. The advantage is the coconut oil is produced locally instead of being imported abroad. But we've been utilizing coconut oil as a base load generating source as well.
Energy for cooking is also a major challenge. The majority of families still use timber for daily cooking, with the average family burning around 2.2 cubic meters of firewood per year, or the equivalent of more than 2 tons of CO2 per family that's going into the atmosphere, as well as creating poor air quality in the communities and degrading native forest areas. Fuel wood is not a free resource. It costs time and money to harvest and supply, and in the urban areas, firewood has become a prime commodity. A growing proportion of households are using bottled gas for cooking, and it is widely used in commercial kitchens and industry. But all bottled gas is imported to Vanuatu, and the cost can be too high for those on small budgets.
it's important that we look at alternative ways of cooking and sources of cooking that is much cleaner.
Rapidly emerging technologies are already driving massive change around the world to seek clean energy alternatives to fossil fuels. However, if Vanuatu is to truly meet its goals of 100% renewable energy by 2030, all opportunities for renewable energy generation must be developed. New hydroelectric projects in Malekula and Santo are already underway, as are more wind generators, as well as studies into the use of geothermal, wave, and tidal energy. Energy storage via conventional batteries or other new technologies must form part of the plan to meet the future demand. With the further expansion of rural mini-grids and home solar, low-cost induction cookers will start replacing firewood. Biogas is already being used at various sites and homes around Vanuatu, but a wider uptake would see a reduction in firewood for cooking. Using animal and even human waste in the digester can help to deal with water supply contamination at a village level, whilst providing a rich natural fertilizer for use in the food gardens. Government policy can drive energy efficiencies throughout the public sector and to homes and businesses. For example, new policies can be developed around appliance standards and new codes for energy-efficient building materials. By achieving energy efficiencies, we reduce the overall amount of energy needed and the cost of energy supply. The transition to green energy creates opportunities for green job creation and opens the doors for new industries and new locally grown expertise through education and training.
We are working on our long-term low-emission development strategies that would guide us into how we intend to transition out from fossil fuel dependent into using 100% renewable energy generation. And that is advantage in terms of guaranteeing the security, energy security of Vanuatu.
The Vanuatu LEDS looks to the energy needs of the future, a future which is carbon net zero and powered 100% with renewable energy. The LEDS provides a pathway to plan, prepare, and meet these needs and goals, paving the way for an energy independent future for Vanuatu.
Thank you. So that was a bit of an insight into the energy sector for LEDS for Vanuatu. We do have another video, which is the introduction. I'm not going to play it, so don't worry, but you can definitely access it after here. I'm not sure if you know that Vanuatu invented bungee jumping. Yes, of course, you know, you should try that. But it's also one of the happiest places in the world. Actually, factually, it's the 4th happiest country in the world. And on that token, I think it'll be great to, and the government and the people of Vanuatu appreciate the support from the government of New Zealand and France. And therefore, on that token, I would like to invite the, the lead advisor for climate change from the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ellie Carlin, for her opening remarks. No, opening remarks, but thank you remarks. Acknowledging remarks, that's much more better. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Ellie. Thank you.
Bit lower. Can you hear me? I think so. Tēnā koutou katoa and good morning. Our warm greetings to our hosts and fellow guests, Mr. Anthony Garai from the Government of Vanuatu, Mr. Penny Liavai from the Global Green Growth Institute, Madam Charlotte Fleur-Christofari from the French Development Agency, and everyone else here today. We're honoured to be here at this event, and we really love the Moana Blue Pacific Pavilion. It is such a great venue. So thank you for inviting me to speak. We congratulate the Government of Vanuatu on the launch of your long-term low emissions development strategy, which will guide low emissions, climate resilient development in Vanuatu to 2050. It's really great to see this being finalized. We acknowledge in particular the efforts of the Department of Energy leading this work on behalf of the government. Excuse me. Excuse me. Aotearoa New Zealand has been pleased to support this project in partnership with the Global Green Growth Institute. We thank the GGGI team for their dedication and expertise that has supported Vanuatu to achieve the goal of a comprehensive low emissions development strategy. And we also thank the French Development Agency for recognizing the value of this work and providing complementary additional funding that has supported the inclusion of adaptation components. This has been a fantastic example of donor coordination that we very much hope can continue into the future. Vanuatu's ambitions for emissions mitigation and enhanced adaptation are reflected in the economy-wide actions within the strategy. It neatly complements Vanuatu's nationally determined contributions to 2030 and also identifies long-term challenges and solutions across all sectors to 2050. Vanuatu has been one of the guiding stars in the Pacific with the development of this long-term planning framework. As one of the most vulnerable countries in the world, it has been critically important for Vanuatu to plan for the impacts of climate change, to be able to reduce the impact as much as possible, and to adapt as needed. There is a lot we can learn from you as we all face these urgent needs in our own countries. We look forward to the publication of the strategy and then continuing to work with you all to support the innovative implementation that you have lined up. Working as a team will be crucial to its successful implementation. When Aotearoa New Zealand launched our climate finance strategy earlier this year, our Foreign Minister, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, gave it a name in her own language, Te Reo Māori. She explained the name, Tuia Te Waka Akiwa, this way. Te Waka Akiwa signifies the aspirations we share to look after our people as we head into an uncertain future, while Tuia acknowledges the binding together of people and things. The binding together rings true today, and we are pleased to stand tied to you in this endeavour and alongside you as we face the future. Thank you and kia ora.
Whakawhitai koe, Ellie. Thank you very much for those kind remarks. And I do concur with you. Such an excellent donor coordination example, having the French government and the New Zealand government also come into collaboration right here in Vanuatu. I think Vanuatu, it's a melting pot of both French and English, so it's great. I think the croissant there is good in Vanuatu, but best of all, the steak. But yes, plant-based diet is also important. Without further ado, I would like to, it gives me pleasure to invite the France Development Agency representative, bienvenue, Charlotte, for your kind remarks. Thank you. Merci.
Morning, kia ora, colleagues. Thank you, Thomas, lo invitation blo you, lo invitation blo government lo Vanuatu, lo GGGI, and thank you, Thomas, lo collaboration blo New Zealand Ministry. AFD stop happy, Thomas, lo collaboration on this amazing work, and I'll keep in English because my Bishlamar is a bit rusty. AFD heard loud and clear what the Pacific is saying, what the Pacific leaders have been saying for so many years about climate emergency. The impacts are here. They're here today. They'll be stronger tomorrow. And France and AFD is fully aware of that. And we want to stand behind you. AFD has been providing assistance to Vanuatu since 1961. And we do value this long-term and historic collaboration. IFD recognizes Vanuatu's high vulnerability in the face of climate change, but also, as you were highlighting with so much strength, the leadership from Vanuatu and the other Pacific Islands, obviously, on the climate agenda. Vanuatu is already net negative emissions, as you were saying, and yet you're still taking the leadership to provide long-term low emission development strategies. And we are very impressed and happy to support your ambition. We've been happy and proud to contribute to Vanuatu's LEDS, especially including adaptation and resilience in all sectors, as you were explaining. We've been supporting Vanuatu and other countries on developing their long-term planning, as we do know that it's a Paris Agreement requirement, but also so important to develop that long-term strategy and make the right decisions now to prepare the population for tomorrow. We've been doing this work through our 2050 facility, and I will thank my colleague Serge, who is here today and who's been leading this work from AFD in excellent collaboration with GGGI and New Zealand, obviously. I also wanted to highlight one other striking project that AFD has been supporting through the facility in Vanuatu, which is called CLIPSA. CLIPSA for Pacific Climate Local Knowledge, which we know how important it is, and adaptation and resilience. This project will provide very high resolution on climate projections, very local level, and create data that will help implement climate adaptation, assess, modelize with more accuracy the future impacts of climate change, heat waves, rainfall, droughts, or obviously cyclones. And we hope that this project will support your adaptation plan, the implementation of the LEDS also. We look forward to developing and nurturing our relationship with Vanuatu and support the Pacific Island, small island developing states on the same path. We nurture the collaboration with New Zealand. Thank you so much for that. And we do hope to continue the great work with GGGI as well. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, Charlotte, for those wonderful remarks. Thank you for also acknowledging the partnership and collaboration. I think it's exciting that we have a great example of partnership and collaboration. So here you have the French, who's been in the region for a long time, has a history with the Pacific, in particular in Vanuatu. Of course, there's New Caledonia and French Polynesia, Wallis and Futuna. And here you have the government of New Zealand, who is now a leader in making a difference and making decisions outside of this COP that makes a difference with its support on loss and damage. And then you have a small and budding organization in GGGI with its value proposition of looking into policy and supporting countries, finding the funds, developing those proposals. And then you have the government of Vanuatu leading on LEDS with its conclusion there in that last slide, saying that they do need help with concept notes and design. Wow, I think that opens up a very good opportunity for us to do a little bit of discussion with these last 3 minutes that we have. So I'm gonna open up the floor for Q&A. If you don't know, Vanuatu is one of the world's most sought after dive sites. Brings us to a deep dive into our Q&As. I'll open the floor for any questions. You want to dive deep into one of these issues on LEDS. And already I have 2 questions online. And I think 3, right? All right, here they are. From Anonymous, when discussing emissions in LDCs, is the burning of wood for cooking purposes included in the overall energy supply and reducing emissions? When discussing emissions, would any one of our panels right here would like to speak towards that? I'll give the floor, Anthony. That's one question. And then we'll dive into the second question. But when discussing emissions in LDCs, basically, do you take into consideration the burning of wood for cooking purposes? Please, Anthony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Of course, when we're doing our calculation in terms of our emission, cooking is also factored into the modeling of our energy. Therefore, for Vanuatu, as reiterated in the NEM and also in the NDC, in terms of the pathway moving forward, how to mitigate or reduce our emissions in the cooking subsector, we've indicated the use of energy efficient cooking stove that would allow matters especially to shift away from cooking by utilizing firewood and using energy efficient cooking stove as a substitute for firewood. So yes, to answer the question, yes, it's factored in the energy modeling as well and included in our policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomas, Anthony. We still have a minute and a couple of seconds. Last question. Do you have that question up, David? Is there scope for private enterprise to engage directly with the development partners, with DOE, on entrepreneurial solutions, potential technical solutions with companies to advance understanding of the sector and solutions which are available? I think time is running out. Perhaps I can come in and there's definitely the case. I think what Anthony presented earlier included consultations that involve the private sector. So the private sector was well organized in this area. And not only that, there's a direction heading towards the banking sector involving financial institutions to really come into play and help support and do that. And with that, we also bring that particular experience from Global Green Growth Institute into play here with regard to that. It's 20 more seconds. I'm gonna do a wrap up. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tomas. Would like to thank the government of France, Charlotte, for your kind remarks. Thank you very much, Ellie. And of course, last but not least, the government of Vanuatu for taking leadership on LEDS. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone online. Enjoy COP27 Sharm el Sheikh.
Thank you for your amazing work and excellent moderation.
Thank you. Well, thank you. No, you were excellent too. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we should.